Welcome to the Exposure Magazine podcast from the heart of the British nuclear test survivor community.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of our podcast. I'm here today to share a story from the autumn 2025 edition of Exposure Magazine, written by Nigel Heaps, telling the story of motorcycles, memory, and the profound weight of history. It's the morning of June 7th, 2025. Picture this. 6 motorbikes roaring to life in the quiet Midlands dawn, their engines shattering the stillness. But this isn't just another road trip. These riders are embarking on something far more meaningful, a 7-day pilgrimage through the battlefields of the First World War. Now, I want you to imagine yourself on that bike, the wind in your face, the rumble of the engine beneath you and ahead of you. The fields of Flanders and the Somme, places where, over a century ago, an entire generation was torn apart. The man behind this extraordinary journey was Nigel Heaps, a history fan with a passion that goes beyond dates and facts. Nigel understood something crucial. History isn't just about what happened, it's about who it happened to. And among his group of riders was Roger Frost, a trustee of the Nuclear Community Charity Fund, who would find himself at the heart of one of the tour's most emotional moments. Over 7 days, these 6 riders covered 860 miles, 40 different stops. Can you imagine? 40 places where they paused, where they stood in silence, where they read names carved into stone. Days were spent exploring Ypres and Arras, names that echo through British history like distant thunder. And in the evenings, over food and continental beers, they'd process what they'd seen, what they'd felt. Because that's the thing about visiting these places, isn't it? You think you're prepared, you've read the books, seen the documentaries, but then you're standing there in front of the Thiepval Memorial and you're confronted with 72,000 names. 72,000 names. British and South African soldiers who simply vanished. No grave, no final resting place, just a name on a wall. And here's something I didn't know until reading about this journey. Sometimes those names are removed from the memorial, not out of disrespect, quite the opposite. When remains are discovered and identified, when a soldier can finally be given a proper burial with their name on a headstone, their name is taken off the memorial to the missing. It's a testament to the ongoing work of remembrance. Even now, over a century later, we're still trying to bring them home. The group also visited the Ploegsteyr Memorial for the Missing, another wall of names, another testament to lives cut short. But Nigel's genius was in the personal touches. He didn't just plan a tour of the famous sites, he researched his riders, their families and their histories. He was looking for connections. Scattered amongst the now green battlefields like fallen lily petals are the white graveyards of the First World War, and amongst these often overlooked places, those connections were made. The final destination of their journey was Pozières Cemetery. If you've ever driven the D929 road between Albert and Bapaume, you'll know it's remarkably straight. Along it, signs mark where the German lines were at different stages of the war. The landscape itself is a history lesson. Pozières Cemetery is surrounded by a memorial to over 14,000 soldiers with no known graves. But unlike Thiepval, this visit had a very specific purpose. They were there to honour a man named Crispin Hampson. Crispin was a sapper with the Royal Engineers 1st Field Company. On August 20th, 1916, during the relentless fighting of the Battle of the Somme, he was killed in action. He left behind his wife, Helen Elizabeth Hampson, back in Bristol. He left behind children who would grow up without him. And eventually he left behind a grandson who would become the honorary life president of the Nuclear Community Charity Fund. His name was Jeff Lydiat. Now, Jeff wasn't on this motorcycle journey, but his presence was felt nonetheless. Because his NCCF colleagues Roger Frost and Nigel Heaps carried something with them to Crispin's grave, a tribute cross with a message from Jeff. Imagine being in Roger's position. You're standing at the grave of a man you never knew, representing his grandson who couldn't be there. You're the bridge between generations, between past and present, between 1916 and 2025. The message read, "In loving memory of our grandfather Crispin. Many years have passed, but he is still remembered with love and gratitude by all his family. Many years have passed, 109 years to be precise, but he is still remembered. You know, We often talk about the First World War in statistics. 4 years, millions dead, entire empires collapsed. And those numbers are important. They help us grasp the scale of the tragedy. But this story reminds us of something else. Behind every single one of those names on those memorials at Thiepval, at Ploegsteert, at Pozières, there's a Crispin Hampson. There's a wife in Bristol waiting for a letter that will never come. There's a child who'll grow up with a photograph but no memories. There's a great-great-grandson who, over a century later, will send a message across time. I remember you. The 6 motorcyclists have long since returned home. The sound of their engines has faded from the fields of France and Belgium. But what they experienced, what they felt, that resonates still. This wasn't just a history tour, it was a pilgrimage. An act of remembrance that transformed abstract history into something deeply, painfully personal. I think that's what we owe those who fell. Not just to remember the big picture, the battles, the strategies, the outcomes, but to remember the individuals. To say their names. To stand at their graves or in front of their names on a memorial wall and to acknowledge, you lived, you mattered, you are not forgotten. Crispin Hampson of the Royal Engineers, killed in action, August 20th, 1916, husband to Helen Elizabeth, grandfather to Jeff, remembered with love and gratitude. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us today as we bring Exposure Magazine to life. Like, subscribe and share for more great podcasts.